Sorry about that, fellas. Vertical, the short streaming. No, I guess I don't know what happened, but it was streaming 1 second, and then I fiddled with it for like 10 minutes straight just a second ago. And that shit is frustrating. Like, bro, so frustrating. Like that every day. Something else though, every day. What have I done? You I was looking into this Clancy thing a little bit more and sort of thinking about it a little bit differently. And I have a little bit less sympathy for it now. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I was looking at some literature about psychology, behavior, s- literature about behavior. And one thing that I found is that like behavior always has a utility. You ever see how these evolutionary psychologists, if there's some behavior that an animal exhibits or that we exhibit, they will spend forever figuring out how that behavior has how it has benefited the individual animal as well as the animal species itself, because that stuff matters, because behavior always has a purpose. Animals don't just do shit for the fun of it. It has a purpose. No, even when somebody's postpartum, even when somebody's in psychosis, the behavior has a utility. They are trying to accomplish some end. Whether they have an excuse, whether they're crazy or not, there's always a reason. Remember Casey Anthony? Like, we've seen this before. Casey Anthony killed her baby so she could continue partying. And we're dealing with totally different circumstances that humanity is under in any other period of time. Like what we think we know about humans, maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but now we're getting new data. We're getting new circumstances, new variables. And if you stop and think about this woman, this Lindsey Clancy, obviously, or when I look at it, thinking about the behavior having a utility, what was, or first, what was Casey Anthony's utility? She wanted a party, but that's actually not what it is. Women's biggest fear is being tricked or forced into bearing a child or a poor mate or being tricked into it. You guys ever wonder why The Handmaid's Tale is such a big deal and why women they immediately jump to that conclusion? Uh, like for a lot of different reasons. Really, whenever they want to bitch and moan about society, they just hearken to that. But that's a great fear of theirs, the Handmaid's Tale, because the women in that novel are forced to produce children, and they don't get to choose the man. This is why rape is considered a fate worse than death, because the woman, her agency is being taken. She's being forced to carry a guy's child. It's basically the same as us fearing cuckoldry. Us or being tricked into raising another man's child, another man's seed. Same thing for women, but it's being impregnated by a man. And if you look at that Lindsey Clancy, that it starts to kind of make sense. And also, because right now, abortion and this Lindsey Clancy and Casey Anthony, these are the ultimate expressions of hypergamy. Casey Anthony, she regretted having that child. And thing is these women, they're still in, or at least Casey Anthony, she was still in party mode. She wa- she was probably losing out on better mates because she had a child. Because you think about intersexual dynamics in the sexual marketplace, it's an economy, truly, and women are designed to they want to secure the best possible provider, the best possible seed. And historically, back in caveman times and stuff, or even chimpanzees and gorillas and stuff, it's not out of the realm of possibility for chimpanzees to kill their own young. It's not out of the realm of possibility for a new alpha male to kill the old alpha male's young. So, and we're no different than apes. We're a little bit higher minded. But if you think about it, there's still a lot of instinct. And what I'm positing here is Lindsey Clancy. That is prehistoric behavior bubbling up to the surface. Casey Anthony, prehistoric behavior bubbling up to the surface. So when they say they couldn't help it, I'm not so sure that's the case. But there's something instinctual about it. There's something that their own physiognomy, their own biology, it's triggering this. These are natural responses by animals, and you ever hear about like when they say, oh, bonobos and chimps, the betas will band together to kill an alpha male. They will band together, they will collectivize their strength, and they'll gang up on the alpha male and they'll kill the alpha male. Well, when people say that, they're stopping short because they're trying to say, oh, there's egalitarianism in the wild, or, and then the chimpanzee troop or the bonobo troop, it just settles into an egalitarian. No, it doesn't settle into anything egalitarian. They gang up on the alpha male, then the alpha male of the other beta males reasserts and becomes the new alpha male. They make it seem like, ooh, they gang up on the alpha male, and then there's no more alpha male. No. They gang up on the one alpha male, then they have a new alpha male. And when that new alpha male takes over, the old alpha male's babies die. Simple as that. The old alpha male's babies die. And also, these, women, they're designed, they need to they need to get a man to provision for them. And if they already have another man's babies in tow, that men are less likely to adopt them, as it were. So this is truly evolutionary behavior. Casey Anthony killed her child to secure a better mate because the mate that she had that kid with, well, he's no longer around. And, in the wild, in a state of nature, it would be her. Like, think about this. If she can't secure a male, she has a child, she's gonna die. So it's either she kills the child, secures a male, or she dies with the child, and the child dies with her. See what I'm saying? So there is absolutely utility to the behavior that's going on. Thing is, though, is it disgusts men because rightfully so, uh, our women are totally capable and totally it's a total possibility that American women could kill your baby. Or you have a kid with a woman and she pulls a Casey Anthony on you. So it's having consequences that maybe they didn't think about, you know? And this Lindsey Clancy, I think that's what's going on there too. See, her husband, bit of a beta male, even though the guy was making $250,000 a year, she didn't uh he was paying for a nanny, she stayed home. It doesn't change the fact that we're operating under a new paradigm, and for whatever reason, her body sort of kicked into kicked back into dating mode, or I didn't think up names before the stream, but like the mode that a woman is in before she has any kids or when she's trying to secure provisioning from a man. This is all really cold stuff too. Like it's like, ugh, this sucks. I don't want to know this at all. You know what I'm saying though? Like as men, this isn't no, we don't want to deal with this. But it's like we're so used we had a social order for 1,000 years here in the West. It was men and women get married at 18 or whatever, or get married at 18 and you stay together till you die, I think. And anyway, well, that's totally changed now. And all of a sudden, the behavior of women starts changing. And because it's so gruesome, they're trying to slap any excuse over the face of this. Whatever caused Lindsay Clancy to kill her children, I'm not so sure it was postpartum. I kind of doubt it was postpartum. Maybe it was a natural biological response that's taking place, but it's not postpartum. Like, no, I don't believe that for a second. Not anymore. But you know what I'm saying? Like when you start to think about it, like I said, all human behavior, all animal behavior has a utility, an evolutionary utility and a short-term utility. Like animals, any behavior, anytime an animal exhibits a behavior, they could potentially be killed over that behavior. So it's never for no reason. Animals don't just act for no reason. And like I said, even in postpartum, even if they're in a psychosis, it has a purpose. And this one's pretty clear that women and like with the chimps and stuff, the males, they kill the babies to get the women to go into heat. I don't know if it's the same with humans, because as far as I understand, like with animals, heat is something that comes in. It's not like women where they have a period every month, no matter what. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I know that, animals kill the young for that reason, to put, a new male will do that to get the women to go into heat. And all of this stuff has it's a there are motivating stimuli that cause this. And there's a hell of a lot to it. And we're operating under a totally different paradigm. Like, we all know it. We look at the dating market, you see how women are behaving, and you see how men are behaving. All of a sudden, nobody knows what the hell is going on. They don't know how to get men to reinvest. They don't know how to get women to act right, or to go back to the way it was. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. And it's because we're operating under a totally different set of pressures, environmental pressures and stuff. And like I said, abortion and infanticide, it's kind of the ultimate expression of hypergamy. I mean, more or less. And women, they get an abortion when, oh, I made a mistake. This guy is a loser. They go and they get but it's also, that's like, it's almost like a guard against, women, they really worry about, and the reason why they have all the, uh, where it's, what is it, mate choice preference, where, or in their friend group, you have to be in their network. Their friends, it's, how women choose their mate. It's like, it doesn't matter what you say. You could, you could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, according to you. But they still need to be able to cross-reference. And it's because they're so concerned with getting lied to or getting tricked and ending up with some deadbeat's kid. That's why they have that mate choice preference stuff, where they really care what other women think of their man. And that's why they go after married men. That's why, if you have a girlfriend already, you've got to beat women off of you with a stick, because the way they see it is, oh, if she's with him, then he must be a good mate. If other women find him attractive, then he must be good. I mean, they really care about what the network thinks or the sisterhood thinks. It's sort of a shortcut, because they just assume the other women are doing the work. But all of this stuff is rooted in pretty off-putting evolutionary biology. It's, to say the least, it's definitely off-putting. What I heard Pearl say something the other day where I just, I don't like the way she says things. She's an idiot. She's a dunce. It's like, golly. And sometimes she does have a nugget of truth, but it's like, anybody else had said it, like, it, it would go down smoother, but she's just kind of an idiot, and I think she cribs a lot of stuff from other people, from guys. It's just like, she's just an e-girl grifter, and it's off-putting, not into it. This is interesting right here.
Do you agree that Matt from Effective Purpose, is that his name, Matt? Effective Purpose. He's the Christian guy, but he's very red pill. I actually like Matt quite a bit. I was watching his most recent podcast on the drive over here today. Abortion is the ultimate expression of, abortion is the ultimate expression of hypergamy. That's it.
I'm not sure if you guys know who this is or not. It's Rollo Tomasi. That's what he goes by. he wrote a bunch of red pill books. But he says basically the same thing as Pearl, but uh, he actually has literature to back it up, and like he's done his work.
Do you agree that Matt from Effective and women don't like when I was talking about Casey Anthony back in the day and sort of alluding to Michaela Peterson, the reason why the reason why Casey Anthony was sort of an illustration is because the dynamic is kill to party, meaning that you kill the kids so that you can be done with that and you don't have the responsibility of the children. And then you can go back to partying, which is exactly what Casey Anthony did, right?
Yeah, and she
was
got
doing
away
it
with
the
it.
night of. So she kills a kid, puts him in the trunk, allegedly, because she got off. Remember, and goes immediately into the club and hangs out. Right, kill to party. And so what happens is and I'm not saying all women do this, but I'm just saying that you have to remember.
Teamwork.
Let's go back to the basics here. You have to remember that what do I have there. Oh, you got it already. Okay. You have to remember that the existential fear of women. Okay, I've written about this extensively. The existential fear of women is to be tricked by a guy to reproduce with that guy, and then suddenly discover that this guy is not who she thought she was. That's why shows like The Bachelor are so popular. That's why women like the feeling of indignation that they get from that. They get addicted to that because that indignation comes from this internal, it's like women will call it their feminine intuition, but it's really a hypergamous filter is what it is. Is this guy really who he says he is? Or is he bullshitting me, right? Is he trying to get in my pants?
That's
right?
why Love Island.
Yeah, or Temptation Island.
Temptation
Maya. Yeah. Is he trying to get in my pants? Like there's that, trying to solve, is this dude for real? Or is he really an attorney and is that Lambo not rented? Or is he renting the Lambo and he's just a sandwich artist at Subway? I want to know right now that you want to know why Instagram is the #1 dating app on planet fucking Earth is because it's used to determine that question right there.
Social proof.
Shit tests. I have said a million times in the past, there are two types of shit tests. There's the active shit test and there's the passive shit test. The passive shit test is when you're already in a relationship. And what is that meant to determine? Is he the best I can do? Should I have had kids with this guy? Should I have married this guy? Was my mom right? Was my sister right? He's really a bum. Should I be with him? When a woman nags you or she gets into like passive aggressive behaviors and conversations and stuff like that, those are shit tests. Those are passive shit tests and they're meant to determine one thing. Is he the best I can do? Active shit tests, what are those for? Those are the ones you have just met that girl at the club or you're just being introduced. She's trying to figure out what your value really is. And so she tries to, does he just get it? Can I fuck with him? Does he, if I give him grief, does he know that I'm giving him grief about this stuff? Can he play the game? She doesn't want to be told about the game, but she wants to know that you're a superior player of the game. So she's going to shit test you to figure out if you are really who you say you are. Why is that? Because in our evolutionary past, women had to determine that this guy is the real fucking deal. Because even if she made a very good reproductive choice, the guy could still get killed by a saber-toothed tiger or an elk or another tribe member or some shit like that. But if that guy was ejaculate and evacuate, if that guy was just in there, get it in and get it done, and he one and done and he's out, and now she's stuck with the child for a lifetime. 9 months of gestation, and then the baby comes out. That's why grape is a violation of a woman's body. That's why it is taken with such severity with women, because you're taking away her hypergamous choice. You're taking away her ability to decide who it is that she's going to reproduce with. That's why a woman's prerogative is a social convention, right? She has the right to change her mind. You want to know why women won't take accountability? Because they can't figure out if you're the real deal or some guy is the real deal or he's not. That's why The Bachelor is in its 32nd season. What season is The Bachelor in right now?
Right now.
Bring it up, because I keep saying 30th. I think it's probably more than that. What's the current season of The Bachelor? 30?
29, so it'd be on the 30th.
So it's coming up to the 30th. So we're coming up on the 30th. So almost 30 fucking years of this show. Why is this the most is the longest?
2002.
2002 is when it started.
Basically since I was born.
Why? Well, because it triggers that indignation over several generations now. Why does it continue to be the most popular show, one of the most popular shows on ABC? That's why. Because women love to have that. Is he really? He should be with her, and he shouldn't be with her. Like, they love that shit. I hate it when women are drama queens. I hate drama. All women love that. All women love indignation. All women love the drama because it triggers that filter. They want to know that it's still fucking working, right?
I don't know about all that. There's a few things that I have a little bit of disagreement with, but the overall overarching idea here sounds, dead on balls, on point. Like, first I was thinking, because you guys saw me, you guys were busting my balls pretty decently the other day, as I kind of wanted to hang back before I sort of committed to an opinion or to something one way or another. Rightfully so, too. And there's a reason why I do that. I know the truth when I hear it. I know when something has the ring of truth. And I hadn't heard something, or what Carl Benjamin had said, where he was saying, hey, they're at the mercy of their biology a lot of the times, maybe there is something here. That had the most ring of truth out of any of the opinions that I had heard. When I heard this one, I'm thinking, especially with the Casey Anthony thing juxtaposed to it, it's like, yeah, we're operating under a new paradigm right now. And the scientists and all the people in academia, they're not going to adjust to that new paradigm. They're just going to keep pretending that they know everything about human behavior and no variables have changed. And she's just a psycho. She just had postpartum. It's like, nah, man. We are operating under a totally different sexual marketplace here. A totally different. We may as well be back in caveman times, pretty much. I mean, that's where women are they're operating from, not from a civilization. Certainly not like we used to have. And they're responding. What's crazy is that they could still be responding the way that they are in civilization. But it's like, when the variables change and they're under these environmental pressures, there's nothing they can do, and also, this is, in my lifetime, I've seen many a women do what this woman did. And I have never seen women react how they did this time. You remember how they reacted against Casey Anthony? It was despicable. Why all of a sudden is it different this time? What the hell is going on? Why is it so different? Well, it's because the game has changed. Everything, there's a lot that's changed. We weren't operating under that paradigm yet. Yeah, true, cowboy. Very true.
It's like watching a horror movie. You're not actually in there, but it triggers our fear, a response, right? And we like it because like, hey, it's, you know, oh, it's Jason. He's going to hack you up with a, you know, whatever. It's the mask, whatever the fuck it is, right? What's the other one? What's the killer clown one that's out right now?
Oh,
Forget that one. But
oh my God, I already forgot.
I don't want to die.
Clown.
Yeah, I don't want to die. Like that, but it triggers that. Why do we like that so much? Why do we like horror movies? Why do we like scary movies? Hell, Alien. You know, why do we like that? Because it triggers that primal, feelings in us. And we can do it from, your brain doesn't know. You're sitting in a dark room and you're watching all this shit happen. It's virtual, yeah, but you still have the adrenaline rush. No, shit. I mean, my wife and I have been watching The Last Ship.
Yeah.
On Netflix. It's Michael Bay actually is the director. Well, it was anyways, the director. There's some pretty intense moments on there. My wife's like,
gripping.
I'm like, why do you do that? How do you? Well, it's evoking a physical response in you, like, because it evokes the adrenaline rush and all of the endorphins or whatever the chemical cocktail is. So think about that. What do women experience when they watch The Bachelor? No, not him. Don't get the rose. You know.
This is why I always said you should always cover, at least when Love Island comes on, the reaction these women have to these stupid fucking things. It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
I'm ashamed. I'm so ashamed that I know this. But so Maya Allegra, my favorite girl in the world, she was on Temptation Island. She didn't get picked, thank God. The sanctity of her of her body has not been defiled. So my girl, I think of her as a daughter. Thank you, but I think she's going to go on Temptation Island too. There's going to be a second one. I'm like, oh, I'm disappointed. But yeah,
all I can say is, like, to that, what he was just saying is, anybody. Like he just said, she's like a daughter to me. And it's like, bro, any guy who takes on some emotional baggage or responsibility like that, bro, you are a fool. And that is folly, as well as you are a cuck. And that is cuckoldry, you pussy. But you're just going to get destroyed. Like if you take responsibility for a young woman as a man today, bro, you're going to get destroyed. She's going to embarrass you. She's going to humiliate you. It's a done deal. And I almost want to say that it's not really even her fault. It's like, I was born in a different time. And that stuff is just unacceptable to my mind. Whereas, I kind of like, they are operating under a different paradigm. And it's like, I think maybe men's expectations need to change. Well, first of all, hell yeah, they need to change. Men need to stop behaving as though they're in the old paradigm. They need to stop expecting low body counts. You're not going to get it. It's not going to happen, If that's what you want, get married when you get out of high school. Find you a woman that's willing to do that. Because it's not going to happen at 30. That's for damn sure.
It's like I've never watched that. I only watched like the first couple of them or two, the first three of Temptation. I got bored after that. But and I only watched because Maya was on it. But like when I was looking at this, like people really like this. This is so like scripted and everything.
It's trash.
It seemed like it was to me. But the principle behind it, like the reason why you get the rush of like, oh, is he going to cheat on her? Are they really in love? Is he going to be faithful to her? Is he not going to be faithful? That's what I'm talking about. It's that indignation is the after effect of it, but the filter itself is what throws people off. And so you've got guys. Now let's bring it full circle around here. Okay, so the existential fear of women is to be forced to reproduce, or by either force or by deception, to have the children of a man who she otherwise would never have chosen to have those kids with. Sometimes that revelation comes after you're married and after the kids have already been born.
Man.
And so that's where we're going with this. And yes, I heard Pearl talking about this with forget who the guy she was interviewed was on with.
Elijah Schaefer. Seen like 2 minutes of it, and she's such a moron. I just couldn't do it. And I like redheads too. She's a moron. I mean, really stupid.
Who the dude was. Anyway, it wasn't Pierce Morgan. It was somebody else.
It was Elijah Schaefer.
But they asked pretty much the same question. And she's like, yeah, they kill their kids because they married the wrong guy or they fucked the wrong guy. I'm like, well, once again, you get the bonehead bumper sticker version of it. The real version is that the existential fear of women is to be forced into reproducing with somebody that they don't necessarily choose. And sometimes that might be retroactive. And if that woman is imbalanced because she has, I don't know, let's see, how many prescription drugs were prescribed to her? All of these?
That's crazy.
In 4 months, by the way. This is 4 months. Like if you look at
a new mother, you're going to load that woman up with that? No wonder, man. This is crazy. It's like, do these doctors and these modern scientists, do they think that they're presiding over anything other than a cultural and societal collapse? These assholes own this shit. They own this shit. Like, and this comes from human arrogance, thinking that we can fix everything, we can solve everything. And it's humans, they automatically assume that their solution will be a better alternative or a more desirable alternative than the problem that they're trying to solve. But no, that's not the way things work. I submit that natural behavior, whether somebody's crazy or not, natural behavior is easier to predict than drugged behavior. And also, once you've drugged somebody, then how do you know what's because of the drugs and what's because of them? It's stupid. It is. It's stupid. At least when they're not on drugs, well, it wasn't drugs. They're crazy. There's something going on here. Bro, look at that list of drugs, man. Bro, in the last 4 months of this woman's life. That's insane, dude. Insane. What else is there to say about it, right?
It was September, October, November, December, January. There you go. 4 months of this chemical cocktail. Okay. You put that into her, she's already regretting. She's got buyer's remorse for getting with the guy. And if you look at the husband, you can kind of understand. And the dude he was paid. He made a lot of money. I think he said his take was like $250,000, $400,000 or $300,000 a year. She was a stay-at-home mom. Didn't have to, no childcare. She was the one she's mom. She's living the trad wife dream, man. How come how could she possibly do this? But that's the mechanics of it. Yes, I would say that definitely plays a factor in it. Now, no one is going to agree with me or Pearl or anybody else, right? Who ripping my material off. But the fact is no one wants to agree with that because it is one of the ugliest fucking truths that about female nature, and they just simply don't want to. They don't want to have that discussion. In fact, the guy that she was talking, I think it was Pearl. She was talking to this guy, and
who wants to think about that when they're getting married or when they knock a woman up or something? Who wants to think about this, dude? Like you make a butch or something when she's pregnant and all of a sudden, she gets the ick and then decides it's curtains for your baby. Yeah.
He just, once it came out, he just wanted to dance around that topic. And it's just like anything else. Like I can remember, what was it? Oh, I know. Usually, this story usually comes out around the time that Trump gets into office because it happened back when he first got in, and now that he did again. But people will like to throw these ideas out there, like, well, in primate troops and chimpanzee troops or in gorillas or whatever, the beta males form coalitions to take down the alpha male because because he's not leading right or something like that. I'm like, well, it's not because they're fucking egalitarian monkeys. It's because they got together and they're sick of getting bullied by that's why the alpha male bullies all the beta males, to keep them in fucking line so that they don't get together and fuck him up. And then once they do and they kill that guy, that's where they stop the story, right? They say, well, they form coalitions and they kill the alpha male. And, ha ha. Yeah, what happens after that? The most alpha male of that monkey troop that got together to kill, he now takes the place of the alpha. And although his boys who were like helping him out, they get fucked. And he goes and you know what happens? What's the first thing he does? Kills all the offspring of the previous alpha, because he's not having those kids, those babies all them babies die. And you know what happens as a result of that? The female, the harem of the previous alpha, anyways, the harem of fertile females, you know what it does? It sends them into estrus. And so that they can have the babies of the now superior alpha male that used the other beta males to get to that point in the first place. Yes, that's exactly what fucking happens. I hate that it might not sound nice to you, but the girl apes, they love them. They want to fuck them. They go right into estrus so they can have his kids. And I'm sure maybe they feel bad about the dead baby chimps, but time to move on. That's the fucking ugly reality. Nobody talks about that. They just go, oh yeah, it looks like those alpha males, they get deposed by beta males. Yeah, until the biggest beta male comes and takes over the alpha male spot. That's what happens. They don't just go back to being, monkey peaceniks. They don't go back to being egalitarian monkeys.
Yeah. But he's not bullshitting there. That is something they do sort of pretend. They gang up
Tell
on
me
the
about
alpha. And it's usually like a way for them to kind of chortle, like, "Ooh, see, alphas sometimes lose." Not really. There's always an alpha in charge, whether or not the last one was murdered or not. There's always an alpha in charge.
If it didn't come up naturally, tell me about your childhood. They feel stuck. They feel like all these decisions that they've made up to this point were made with a different plan in mind, because nobody wanted to talk about the fact that men and women are different, and so it's okay to construct a different kind of life.
Mm. Why do you think it's unpopular to warn women of that?
Because the goal is a political one. It is about men and women being equal, which doesn't mean equal in value, the way I define it, but sameness, basically, interchangeability, that, what one can do, the other can do, which, by the way, is often true, but it doesn't take human desire into account. So male and female desire is very, very different. And we don't talk about that because that would highlight how men and women are different. And the goal is for men and women to be the same and to have these trajectories that are the same so that everything can be equal and 50-50 in this sort of utopian version of what life should look like for men and women. And it's just not working. It's been several decades now with this messaging.
Yeah, I had this idea a little while ago, the bigotry of male expectations. So there's an idea called the bigotry of small expectations or of low expectations, which kind of explains some of the white savior complex that college-educated white people have around minorities, that we will give you a helping hand, allow us poor people from a minority background, we will help you along. And there's kind of a similar situation, I think, that's happening with the way that women are being spoken
Sorry about the sound. I didn't realize nobody said anything.
to specifically by other women, which is you are only as valuable as you are able to play the role that typically men have done. And, that in some ways sounds very liberating. So you go, wow, this is independent. It's pushing women to be able to do what they want to do without the constraints that would have held them back previously. And I think that that's true. But what it forgets is that implicitly that denigrates what women have typically done. It makes them second-class citizens
no
for doing the
shit.
things that they used to do. There's a famous study that happened where hunter-gatherers from ancestral times were analyzed using modern hunter-gatherer societies, and women, a slightly, how do you say, motivated research team analyzed the data and said women did just as much big game hunting as men, and maybe even more. And what they were trying to put across was women were able to do the thing that men did. Now, they fucked with the data. It turned out that that wasn't really the truth at all. But what it implicitly said was that hunting was important, but gathering wasn't.
Exactly.
And I'm like, how is that not misogynistic?
Yeah.
Like, that's the most misogynistic thing that I can think of from someone that's supposed to be pro-women. You're saying the thing that you do or did, or your ancestors do or did naturally, is not as important. And only if you're able to contort yourself into the shape of a man are you worth something.
So in the same way you had women that did not fit the mold, say back in the 50s and 60s, who...
Oh, I gotta say, too, that has always driven me crazy, is the way that these progressives think and these feminists think, is that the women that I love, the way women are, that I want them to be, that moves me, that makes me want a female in my life, they think that is beneath human beings. They want to kill that iteration of women. And I've always taken offense to that shit. Like how they constantly, it's like only men matter to feminists. And for a woman to mean something, she has to try to fit herself in the man peg hole. You know, she has to be the round peg that fits in the square hole. And it's just disgusting. It's like, bro, you people are so twisted and evil. You know, like the behavior of women that men like is like their goal in life is to destroy it. And we all know as men that, there is definitely a place in the world for women. Like, I don't want to provide for some boss bitch. She can go, pound sand for real. Go piss up a rope because I don't want any part of it. None. I would rather die alone. But the other, stay-at-home mom or the barefoot and pregnant, bro, I'd walk over broken glass to provide for that. And I can't stand it to hear that it badmouth and to hear them scoff. Like, and in this video, this podcast, every time the woman says just pregnant or just raising kids, she's like, I don't mean it that way though. Like, I'm just because how feminists say, or the way they act is, oh, you're just raising kids. You're not, you don't have, you're not getting paid for that labor. Because to them, any unpaid labor, first of all, they say it's oppression, which is bullshit. That is not unpaid labor. It's just these feminists, they don't see, or they see everything through a man's lens. That, you have to get paid for labor for it to be valid and worthwhile. When we all know raising kids is not a part-time job, and it matters just as much as any man's job. Straight up. I mean, you can't really even argue that because if you want good men, if you want good adults, good people, they need to be raised right. They need to have a good mother that looks out for them and a father that provides and looks out for them. And I guess feminists, because they're not interested in having kids or whatever, they don't seem to understand that. They don't grasp that jobs that get paid, the reason they get paid is because, they're a part of an exchange economy. Whereas the stay-at-home mothers, they don't need to exchange their services for goods or money. You know what I mean? Like that, there's no need to exchange. So they don't need to get paid for that labor. But it's just as important as any other job in any society. And it's like every other society, but this one, understood that. Like our society is just so out of whack. It's topsy-turvy. And and these feminist women, man, they're crazy.
Maybe did want more,
Evil.
right, from life than being just a wife and mother.
Mhm.
Although I use the word just only to make a point,
See?
not because I feel that way about it. If they did want more, they felt a little odd.
Yep.
And now you fast forward half a century and it's the complete opposite.
Mhm.
It's important for people to understand, which I don't think people in their 20s and 30s do so much. And that is how this all really came to be. Because feminism, the second wave, we're talking about 1970s feminism. When you do a deep dive, which most people aren't going to do, but if you do it,
That's why you're here.
if you do it, it was so depressing to have to go through all that stuff back in the day. You come to realize that the loudest voices that we heard from, which is just a minority of women, right? It's not the everyday women. These
10%
are
maybe.
very small group of women who had some power and clout. And if you study their backgrounds, you find that just about every single one of them had a very dysfunctional story or
Makes
upbringing
sense.
or background that caused them to turn away either from men or marriage as an institution. And rather than study their own story and come to terms with what happened to their mom and dad is what we're talking about, they extrapolated that story to
Marriage
mean,
is evil.
oh, the whole system's screwed up. Oh, marriage is oppressive. Oh, no woman can be happy at home. I mean, they just made these stories. And because they had the spotlight and people don't do that research, it sounded plausible because maybe if you're a woman who kind of back in the day did feel sort of whatever about motherhood, that's gonna speak to you.
Or constrained by the lack of independence and
Yes,
financial freedom.
because you are constrained for a
Correct.
while. It's a lot of work and it's a tremendous amount of sacrifice. It's a trade-off that obviously I feel is 150% worth it. But we don't live in that world that after so many years of all of that messaging, it's not like feminism. Nobody really talks about it as a thing out in the world anymore. It's more like it's just embedded into the fabric now of society. You don't question or discuss feminism per se. It's just kind of accepted and known. Well, of course, in order for a woman to be equal to a man, she's got to live that same life. You can't be powerful or happy or liberated or empowered if you're not working for pay.
And if you do that,
Insane.
if you do the opposite of that, it's because you're specifically being counterculture.
Or oppressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've been conned by the patriarchy.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying modern culture has prepared women for work.
Yes.
But not for relationships and family.
150%. That's what I'm saying. And so what I'm receiving the women as a coach who are coming in, and as I say, they're usually around 30, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older. And all of a sudden their priorities shift dramatically and they desperately want a baby, or they want to get married and can't find a man, or they are pregnant and they want to stay home and can't because they made all these decisions professionally, relationally, financially to set them up for a life where you are never out of the workforce. And when you do that, you're going to feel stuck, and it's going to be a lot harder to extricate yourself from that once your priorities shift. And that's kind of where I come in when they call me. Is like, And sometimes their husbands don't want them to do it. And it's just been this mess, really, because of all this messaging. And because, going back to your initial question about apologizing to them, what I'm basically saying is, I'm sorry you were set up to fail. It's
Huh,
wrong. And you were set up because of politics. And you don't really realize that, because this goes,
bro, she is on point. That's why I do feel bad for women because they've been lied to, and their own mothers don't come to their defense and say, "Hey, look, don't do this," or they left out a few things. Like, Gen X, those mothers, bro, the disservice they did to their daughters. I mean, and their fathers too. And I remember thinking this years back, like, man, fathers really did their daughters a disservice when they told them, "Oh, you're a princess. You deserve this. You deserve that." Uh, and basically just talked them into dying alone. And those men didn't have any clue what they were talking about. They were advising their daughter to plan for a life that they not only had no experience with, but didn't even have any experience with women that had lived that life. Like this modern girl boss life. You know, what is it, millennials? Those are the first women that have ever lived that lifestyle. Specifically, they're the first women ever. And it's been a disaster. And I think shame on the generation before them that pushed that generation into a life and into a way of life that was untested. These women, maybe they were dissatisfied with their marriage. Maybe they were dissatisfied with being a stay-at-home mom. But for them to have just taken it on their own sort of responsibility to push their daughter into a life that they couldn't vouch for personally. And they didn't know any women that could vouch for it. Hey, what's up, Grand Designs? They're just like, yeah, get a career and do this, this, and this, and you'll enjoy your life way better than me. And in all reality, it was a lie. And they were totally full of shit. They had no idea what they were talking about. And like, man, this was a society, a culture dropping the ball like across the board. Mothers, institutions, and just women in general screwed this young generation, the generation that I grew up with. And it wasn't from the start. It was like it was something that happened once I got into high school. All of a sudden, maybe it was middle school, but they they weren't the same girls. It was like they were being told one thing up until I guess they hit puberty, and then it was a totally different thing. They were being pushed towards a lifestyle that was untested, not tried and true. And the ones that didn't go in for that, and the ones that totally rejected that are still married today. Like, I know them. And the ones that didn't, or that did drink from the well, the societal well, dude, they're in rough shape. Rough shape. Feel bad for them too.
way back before you were even born.
What are the decisions that you think lock women
Yeah.
into this future that is difficult to navigate when they grow up?
So I think there are three main decisions that women make throughout their 20s that can either set them up well or cause them to struggle more later. The first one is professional. So I've always been a very big proponent of finding and choosing a profession and a major in school, let's say, that works well with the kind of life you want to have down the line. So
Exactly.
you have to really think ahead.
Like, I can vouch for this. I remember my mom or my dad, he was always the breadwinner. My mom always worked, more or less. I mean, she did. She worked as a bank teller in her early 20s, and then by like 30, she was working in a title insurance company. But her job was always, I guess, just icing on top. And whereas my dad's job, that he paid the bill. But let's say I got in trouble at school. They were, or the teachers and the principals, like they were like if they called my dad, he would say, "Don't ever call this. Like, don't you dare ever call my job ever again." You call his mother. Although my mom would do that. She would say, "No, do not call his father." And or if I was sick, my dad never came and got me, but my mom would come and get me. And then if my mom couldn't come and get me, she would call a sister, one of her sisters, to come and get us. Because my mom worked uh, on the other side of town where her sister lived, and her sister lived on our side of town. So they kind of had a deal where if my cousins were sick, my mom would go get them. And if I was sick, my aunt would come get me. But my mother, her job was I guess she had the flexibility, or whether she had it or not, she didn't care, I guess. But her job revolved around her children. It wasn't that, her children revolved around her job. If her job got in the way, she would have quit this. She would have quit it. And that's not to say that my dad didn't contribute. My dad took me to football practice every day or every time, picked us up from school every day. And it was only if my dad worked late that my mom picked us up. So they actually kind of balanced it really well. But, my mom, for whatever reason, if there was an emergency, she was the one that took time or dropped what she was doing to come handle it. Whereas any sort of scheduling, like you had a football practice after school, my father took care of that because he got off work earlier. But I said all that to make the point this woman's about to make, that it's smart of women to set up a career that can revolve around their kids, a career that's flexible enough that when and if and when they decide to have kids, they don't have to quit the job and they don't have to choose between things. So, like I said, with my mom, she still, says, like, thank God, like that my job was that way, because she really just wanted to be a mother. And also, like, I remember every field trip, my mom basically chaperoned, and her job allowed her to do that, and she didn't get a whole lot of raises or promotions, but and I think that's a situation that many women can uh, uh, identify with, and I think a lot of women do that the same, like as my mom did. Kind of once they have kids, their career, they kind of let up off of it. They don't go so hard, or they back off of it. I know my dad's mother, she would get part-time jobs, like she had a job at a skating rink. Uh, the skating rink down the street from where I live now, but back in the 70s. Like, that's and say, "Oh, women, and you're just a homemaker. Oh, you know, unpaid labor." It's like almost no mothers back in the day just stayed at home. Like they did anything they could to earn extra. Just not necessarily so they could buy purses and shit. No, to help their man with the bills. Like, my grandmother's such a good woman. Both of my grandmothers, they wanted to contribute. It wasn't, oh, my grandmother didn't see it as her money and my grandfather's money or her time, my grandpa. No, it was all one pool. They pooled. And a good woman, a good wife should want to kick in as much as possible. Because usually the husband, if unless they're really well off, the husband's usually got a full plate. You know, he's doing everything he can. I mean, at least you'd hope that'd be the case. It usually is. I feel like for the most part, people don't try to take advantage of their spouses or even just any loved one. Like I can't really imagine. It's a pretty poor or lousy excuse for a woman, if you're not trying to contribute as much as possible. Because not only that, or reason being is your kids are only going to have a better childhood as a result. Like better or whatever, better childhood. It's like there's just a really twisted. This is a really twisted paradigm. Women are told some pretty awful stuff, and they're taught to expect unreasonable stuff, like men that are millionaires. Like it's very unreasonable. And they're anywho.
And play the long game when you're making these decisions. So instead of getting a degree in some major that isn't going to do anything for you, you're not going to make any money from it. Find something practical and not just that pays a decent wage, but also that can be worked around
upload
how you see your life in your 30s and 40s. So in other words, I mean, to simplify this, it's rather than putting career at the center of your life and trying to fit men and marriage and motherhood in around that, I want them to do the reverse. I want them to put family first and make these decisions orbit around that. And that begins with the kind of career that you can, move in and out of more easily, ones that can be done more maybe part-time or from home, ones that give you control. You own something, like you could start a business later, just basically flexibility. So that when you're older and your priorities do shift, which for most women they do, you have options.
What do you say to the women that go, why should I have to give that up? I don't want to have to give that up. I don't. Why should I have to? Why should I have to sacrifice and build my career around family life? There's
no should, but you will very likely want to. And if you set yourself up the way you're doing it, you'll have no options.
You'll set yourself up to fail, in other words. Only a fool. Not only that, this is what mothers and community and the sisterhood, this is what they're supposed to be there for. To warn or to say, hey, you might want to think ahead with, think about this situation or possibility, because you never know. Like, and see all the women, they think they want one thing their whole life until they get to the point where they want kids. And then it all changes. And it used to be mothers and sisters and women around would make sure that a girl or a woman understood that, hey, you may feel differently in the future. You might want to plan for that just in case. Maybe you don't feel that way, but you want to have the option, of course. What kind of a fool boxes themselves into, locks themselves into something like that, And a lot of women were just poorly advised in the past 30 years.
If you do it the other way, you'll at least have the option, because what you're going to feel like is important at 32 is going to be very different from what you feel like at 22. You just don't even realize how you're going to change.
I think that's one of the challenges with this, right? That you're saying women who are not thinking about family literally don't even have it on their bingo card.
Exactly.
You need to think about a thing you're not planning for and currently don't want. It takes an unbelievable amount of counterculture pressure to be able to say, none of my friends think about this. None of modern media is suggesting that I do this. I don't even feel the desire to do this. And actively, if I got pregnant right now, I don't even know what I'd do about it.
Oh, yeah, they do know what they do. Why does he even try to equivocate for that? Bro, they would kill the kid. Does anybody even doubt that? Like, come on now. I mean, there is a certain percentage of women, at least in my experience, that they get pregnant at 19 or whatever, they will keep the kid. My brother's for his son, his firstborn, uh, his chick did that. Uh, a woman that I dated did that. Uh, but that's kind of like the outlier. Usually, most of them, they kind of have they've made a hard decision on that. Like, yeah, I'm not having kids. And it's a foregone conclusion.
But I should start to construct a
Totally.
life that is future-proofing me in order to do that. It's a huge, going into against the tide moment.
It's so huge, Chris. I mean, it's a big ask, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and the
It is a big ask, but it used to be that people had a community that cared about them, and women would trust that community. Like, I don't feel this way, but if my mom's saying so, maybe I should do it. Know what I mean? Like, things have just gotten so far afield of this, the old paradigm.
It surprised me that women aren't doing it.
no, because the running joke is, well, I'm trying to get to you when you're 22 before you come to me at 32. But at 22, you're not interested. But at 32, you're like, help me, help me. And I'm like, ugh.
She's
You
a
know,
little
it's
bit,
so hard.
a little bit over animated, I would say.
I mean, one of the hardest things about coaching for me has been hearing these women and knowing that all of this stuff could have been avoided if they had just been told the truth.
Have you considered, in school in the UK, we have something called Scare Them Straight? I don't know whether you have the same thing. It's not gay conversion. It's getting prison guards in to... So can you give me an example of the prototypical 32-year-old person that comes to you? What
Yeah.
career choice have they made?
Yeah.
What did they do in their 20s? And
Yeah.
why is that an issue now? Because a lot of women might think, well, if I choose a high-powered career, that means that I've earned more money, which means that I can step back from it.
So I'd say the biggest issue there that cannot be overlooked, and one of the reasons, or one of the ways I think this began to go really downhill, is student debt,
Ah,
which is a massive
shit.
problem in America. And that messaging came from people who are parents who were like, doesn't matter what it costs. This is the most important thing
Lord.
ever. So it doesn't matter if you have to go into debt to do it, because you're just going to pay it back, right? Well, the problem with that is by the time you're done with all the schooling and you've gotten the job,
You're
and then
30.
you're starting to be paid enough to even begin to pay it back, all of a sudden you're around 30 years old. And then this other thing comes into play. So that, and this leads into, home ownership, all these financial issues that were a result of decisions that were made, again, because they're not playing the long game, because nobody taught them, listen, if you go into this much debt and then you get married and maybe you want to stay home, you're not going to feel like you can because you owe all this money and your money's not going to go as far and you're not going to feel like you can have a house. And it's not fleshed out in the way that it needs to be.
This is what I was talking about. Women were pushed into a lifestyle or planning for a lifestyle that nobody had ever lived before. Nobody even knew what they needed to plan for. They just basically said, well, pretend you're a man, plan for it that way. More or less. And no wonder that didn't work out. It's not much of a plan at all. And it's been a disaster. And I don't think this lady is just trying to offer uh, an alternative perspective.
Hmm.
For both young, I mean, I have a son and a daughter, and everything my husband and I taught was for both of them. But of course, their trajectories are going to be different because one's a boy and one's a girl. And that's another thing that's really taboo because nobody wants to parent their children, opposite sex children, differently because you're supposed to be the same.
Hmm.
But the reality is that girls' and women's bodies do something that a man's doesn't.
Hmm.
And that has to be taken into account when mapping out a life in a way that's unique to them.
Most people have no idea where their testosterone levels sit. But what if,
right? Or isn't going somewhere, let's say. That's, of course, not done anymore because you're supposed to take care of yourself. You don't.
Yes, they're talking about way used to when you picked a man back in the day, he had to have a trajectory or at least he had to have some future that was tangible. He'd have something going for him. Whereas women nowadays, because they're told, "Oh, go get a degree and make a lot of money," they think that now it doesn't matter if they marry a deadbeat or not. Now it doesn't matter what the guy does for a living because she, is going to potentially have this career. Well, imagine how many women have been screwed by that. We've seen them. All the women that just threw caution to the wind ended up with some jackass, and then they struggle. Like one of the girls I dated, she ended up having a kid with some deadbeat, and next thing you know, she's scrambling, going to nurses school, trying to figure that out, having to sort of lay off her responsibility on her mom and her siblings, just to barely get by.
You don't need a man to take care of you. So there are a lot of women who are getting with men who are who haven't found their professional footing, let's say. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
Or they're going to bank on the fact that they will find it someday. And you just basically don't want to marry a man who hasn't found themselves professionally because you, again, going back to, you're going to have fewer options down the road because you, in fact, do need a man on whom you can depend financially, if only for a short period of time.
Hmm.
And why should that be controversial? Here's something that's really interesting. They took a poll of Americans, and 71% of American adults believe that it's important for a man to be able to provide for his family. Guess how many think a woman should be able to, or should do it?
50?
32.
Okay.
71 to 32. Now, that says to me that we know instinctively that women become vulnerable when they have a child and that they're going to need support, both emotional and financial, for X period of time. And that is in part why we need men to um, embrace their providing and protecting desire. And women aren't sort of expected to be the providers because do we really want women to get pregnant, carry that baby for 9 months, give birth, breastfeed, go through all of that, and by the way, get back to work? You should be working too while you're doing that.
Hmm.
But and that is what society says. Like my mom felt obligated to do that. Like I think she breastfed me for like a week or something because she felt pressure to get back to work, to immediately be back in the office like 2 weeks later or whatever. Or I guess she would get like a month after she had a kid or whatever. She definitely felt that pressure. It wasn't until my little brother, her last kid, that she said screw them and took the time she needed off. But it's crazy though how our society, it sort of like pretends that it's not pushing women into going right back to work, into their child just straight up being left out to dry. It sort of like pretends that, oh, that's not what we're asking, but it is. It is because they don't really, they don't flesh it out. They don't explain what they should do. They just say you can have it all. This really, I think it's been a societal failure, cultural failure on every level. Levels of community, like like for immediate community, uh, and every level on up to like even to federal. Women have been told to plan for a future or go down a path that was totally it was a trail that was unblazed.
I mean, nobody really thinks that's a good idea that you hear, because why not just do that too? It isn't natural. And if you're experiencing it, when you really do experience it and you look at it, you're like, how could I ask her to go do this right now?
Huh.
She's very busy and she's very tired and she's depleted and she has an appendage hanging from her that needs her. And so I think we know that instinctually. And I think that's the reason for that gap.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I wonder how many women are allowing themselves to pick up the slack of
All
mate
of
choices where they thought, well, I'm
Guaranteed.
independent already, so financially maybe I'm going to pay a little bit less attention to his future prospects in this way. The top quintile, so the top 20% of female earners and the bottom 40% of male earners are mating with the woman as the primary breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
So the top 20% of women are mating down socioeconomically and the bottom 40% of men are mating up socioeconomically. That's a big chunk.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's going on. So yeah, I wonder how many women are basically picking up the slack, which I got to bring this up.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Emma Grede? Do you
No.
know who she is?
No.
Emma Grede is the British Kardashian whisperer entrepreneur who is the co-founder and CEO of the Good American clothing brand and a founding partner of Skims. But lately,
Skins.
she's been getting way more attention. Something else, how she parents her 4 kids, ages 12, 10, and 4, the twins. And we've got a clip that I want to show you.
Well, and you're very honest about how you view parenting. I have to ask you about this. You did an interview with the Wall Street Journal, and the headline was "The Kardashian Whisperer Who Says 3 Hours with Her Kids Is Enough." That's based on what you say in your book. You call yourself a 3-hour max mom. That raised a lot of eyebrows, as you know. What did you mean by that, a 3-hour max mom?
Well, what I meant by it was exactly what I said, and I really don't want to backpedal. The first thing that I thought when I saw that headline was like, wow, that would never have been written about a man. Nobody would ever have written that about my husband. But the important thing is that
Oh yeah, nobody would have ever written that about the father. Yeah, and then the flip side of that coin is nobody writes a lot of shit about women. Like, what I hate hearing genders complain about the other side because it's like grass is always greener. There's what she meant by appendage, child, young, an infant. It's like the grass is always greener, and it's so low IQ. Like, do you ever hear anybody talking about deadbeat mothers or, like there's a whole nother flip side that men get that women never get.
bring a level of honesty to everything I say, because when you work Monday through Friday, the idea that you've got this entirely free weekend to just be with your kids and orientate your whole world around your children.
Orientate? Really? Did that woman just say orientate? And she's, well, some fucking brown clown wannabe English woman.
It's just not a reality. I have errands to run. I have things to do. And because we're in a social media culture that says, you have to arrange every play date and count every macro and decide what your kids can and can't eat and make sure that they're constantly entertained, it's impossible. We're setting women up for a failure and we're holding women to impossible standards. So what I meant when I said I was a 3-hour mum is that I probably spend like 3 hours with my kids doing the things that they want to do, entertaining them, being down on the floor and playing with them. Then I have other things to do. And that's just the truth. It's just a reality. And I think a lot of parents feel exactly the same, that you're depleted after a week at work and actually you only have a couple of hours. But isn't
Yeah, that's this woman's an idiot, first of all, the English woman, but it's like, yeah, no shit you feel depleted after a week of work. That's why this two-income trap for women working never sat well with fathers and husbands. 'Cause they know their kids are suffering in some manner. One way or the other, they are.
That good enough? I think it is.
What do you think of that?
So much to say about that. I don't know where to begin.
I'm
um,
not gonna lie. This lady really reminds me of my dad's sisters, like my aunts, and I love my aunts. Like, this lady kinda it's the opposite of abrasive or rubbing the wrong way. Like, I really like her affect. She reminds me of my Aunt Pam, like, s like, big time with the short blonde hair, although my Aunt Pam does have a neck, but big time. Like, and actually, the way she talks too, very like my aunt, but I actually think this lady looks like like a decent mom, decent woman. Like, I wouldn't mind being around her. She seems like she's got a decent head on her shoulders, and I'd be willing to bet she was smoking hot when she was younger too.
back when I wrote my first book, and that was 25 years ago,
She
you
reminds
can't
me
even
of my
believe how
Aunt
many of these
Pam.
things. This, of course, we didn't have social media, but it was all print. But the amount of stuff that I read like that from hardcore working mothers who basically wanted to make the argument that good enough mothering. Just give them a box of cereal; they'll be fine for dinner if you're too tired to cook, that kind of thing. Um, I have a theory that this overparenting craze of the last, what do you think that is, 15 years,
Longer than that.
came about as a result, sort of after women had started, mothers, excuse me, had started going into the work en masse and finding out for themselves that, wow, okay, this doesn't work well with, especially with littles, but full time with motherhood, with young children. And they had to cut corners. And so, um, my argument's always been that those are two full-time jobs. In the same way you can't be a doctor and a lawyer simultaneously. Nobody would suggest you do that. It's no different from full-time motherhood and whatever she's doing or people are doing that are full-time. They clash. They inherently clash, and something's got to give, and you have to make choices. So, um, the there's a couple different elements to that. On the one hand, I want to say, when you are home full time, let's say with your children, it is true that you would only spend a couple of hours, as she puts it, down on the floor with them, doing something that they want to do really intensely. It's not like stay at home moms are any different from her in that regard. The difference is that the rest of the hours of the day you are physically present
Yup,
and available.
yup.
So as an at-home mom, you're not supposed to be on the floor 12 hours a day engaged with your child as if they're the center of the universe. That's not motherhood. But it got skewed when this transformation happened, when moms were trying to mother with leftover time and feeling intense about it, like, oh my gosh, I haven't been here all day, so I have to really make this 1 or 2 hours count. And then they came up with a conclusion about, well, it's not supposed to be this way. Let's just say, screw that.
Hmm.
But that's a misreading of really what it's not that you can be absent 10 hours and then come home for 2 hours and be intense. It's when you're there and you are present, there's so much going on that is outside of the one-on-one care. I don't know if I'm making this very clear,
Well,
but
it seems like what Emma would say is she's making it work. She's doing 3 hours, and the kids are
Yeah, she thinks she's making it work, but you don't know the damage that you've done until they're adults. You don't know what sort of attachment complex you've saddled your poor kids with. Straight up. I mean, I'm not even gonna bullshit you. Yeah, I definitely I had a problem with that because my mom went straight back to work, and I've kinda struggled with it my entire life. Don't blame her for it, but spent my entire school career in trouble in the office, for because of that, because, I had some kind of a complex over it.
well, we
at
don't.
least.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, what do you think's happening to
um,
kids that are getting 3 hours with mum over a weekend, or 3 hours on a Saturday?
And honestly, that's why I'm kind of adamant. Like, yeah, I'm just not going to have kids if I can't. Their mom can't stay home with and raise them. It's just I'm not going to do it because you just can't do that to my kids. Do what was done to me. My parents unknowingly did that, but I know, and I couldn't do it.
3 hours on a Sunday.
well, it's more about what's happening the rest of the time. It's not. I mean, those 3 hours might be great, but what's happening the rest of the hours of the week? You can't fill in for an absence with a couple of hours a week with small children. It just doesn't work that way. That whole quality time thing is bogus. That's not real. Children need tons and tons and tons of quantity time, not quality time. It's just
Yeah.
not something you can just do in leftover time. I don't know how else to say it.
Why do you
So-
think
And not only that, like I remember my mom getting home from work. Like me and my dad would get home at like 4:35. My mom would come in around dark, like 6 o'clock, just licked, tired, not wanting to do anything. Maybe she had the energy to spend 30 minutes with me, if that. I felt like I got fucking robbed. I still feel like I got robbed. So it's just not doable. It isn't, my mom, when she would get home, she just wanted to read a magazine or something. She was a great mother, but you only have so much attention, so much uh, energy. And then on the weekends, she would be just as tired, wanting to sleep all day or whatever. She would force herself or whatever, but I've seen it from the inside, and I just assumed, forego it if I had to do that. Sucks that to be born in such a shitty era, to get dealt such a poor hand of cards. But it is what it is.
Emma believes that you can then? Because
she needs to. Otherwise, her life wouldn't work if she actually
Yeah.
entertained something else. So if I don't know her, and I don't know how many children she has, and I don't know how young they are. Oh, you said 4, right?
12,
Sorry.
8, and 2 4-year-olds.
Okay.
But it doesn't sound like this is a new revelation to her. It seems like this has been her approach to parenting
Sure.
for a while. She's been the CEO of Skims.
Oh,
and she's
sure.
got
There's
all of this
people who
stuff
do it
going
all
on.
the time.
And
But
she's got a lot of daycare help, a lot of handler,
Right.
childcare
But
assistance.
for example, if we were to present to, I don't want to talk about her per se, but just somebody like that, present to her information about the early years, like you spent several hours with Erica Komisar talking about what goes on in the early years and attachment and all of that. A person who has a different philosophy about it will not be able to take that information in, because in order to do that, you'd have to completely rearrange your life and look at it very differently.
Well, what you're suggesting here is that in order for
The same thing as all the trans advocates. They somehow convince themselves that it's not castration, it's not evil. And now they can't entertain the idea that it is evil because they did it, because they advocated for that. Now they're married to that shit, because for them to acknowledge that is to acknowledge they did something truly despicable, truly evil. And they won't. Same thing that she's saying. These women, they won't even entertain the idea that what they've done is, like, my mom kind of won't entertain it. It would make her feel too bad. If I forced her to, if I kind of cornered her and just drilled her, it would destroy her. So she kind of women, everybody kind of you have to live with yourself. You have to live with your decision. And if you've made a poor decision, living with it is the same as pretending it doesn't exist, more or less.
this kind of life to work, where there's only 3 hours with kids, there are some unseen but very powerful
Well-paid.
attachment costs that are going to happen to the kids.
100%.
That there's damage that's being done, but it's
yeah.
just not visible. But the damage that would be done if you had to leave work would be immediately visible.
Say that last second one, Lynn. The damage if you what?
If you had to leave work. So if you had to, there are no solutions, there's only trade-offs.
You're right.
And the trade-off that you have to make here is, in order for me to work as much as I want to work.
Yes.
Short-term trade-off versus a long-term trade-off. Like, if you keep going to work, you're going to pay for it in the long run, because your kids are going to be messed up, or they're going to have some issue, difficulties to overcome. And then on the flip side, if you quit your job, you're going to have to make ends meet without that source of income. And that's that's a short-term issue. We need to have these conversations. We got to we have to map out the road here. Because the way we've been going, trending for the last few decades, it's unacceptable. It doesn't work. And the only way you figure it out is by talking about it.
The kids don't get to see me, but they're fine.
Yeah.
It's the assumption.
Yeah.
Erica's work is saying, no, they're not, and this isn't good for them.
Right.
But that price gets pushed down the line. You know, the attachment issues only show up when they're trying to date in their 20s and 30s.
There you go. That's it.
However, the alternative, the other trade-off, which would be I need to leave work, that's paid immediately.
Yes.
That gets paid right now.
Yep.
So it's
I mean, we're not even allowed to talk about this. Let's be honest. So, I mean, not only do we not address it until
True.
years later when they're in their own relationship, we don't even talk about the early years. We don't talk about daycare being bad, for example. So
I keep on putting my foot in it. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I don't know how we got on to her, what I said per se, but
You were just talking about this like cultural pressure on women
Yeah.
to produce in the
Yeah.
same way as men do.
Yeah.
Like, what does the cultural pressure on women to produce
Yeah.
in the same way as men do to women?
So I don't think at the beginning it feels necessarily negative. I think when men and women are young, their lives do look remarkably similar. You go to school, you get a job, you're working, you're not married with kids yet. So you kind of do look interchangeable, right? You're doing the same things. And everybody's fine. My argument is that it's really not until you start to either think about children or then really when you have them that our differences become glaring between women and men. So, for example, when a woman goes through all of that physically in being pregnant, giving birth, breastfeeding, and being at home in those early months or years, nurturing, I mean, when she has a baby, her first inclination is not to financially provide for the baby. Your first inclination as a woman is to take care of him or her and to nurture him or her. That is natural to you. Your desire to work for pay, at least in that moment, for those, let's just say months, ramps down. Generally speaking, when a man becomes a father, his desire to provide ramps up. And my theory about that,
Yeah, why would we push people for the opposite? It's like, and I was saying this yesterday. Women, they have a kid, they naturally want to, like the nesting thing, they want to settle in and raise that kid and take care of that kid. And the men naturally want to go out and kick some ass and bring home the bacon. Yet society, insists that the woman should want to go out and make some money. And it just sort of says, acts as though men are they're superfluous. They don't matter.
is really that I feel like because there's such a difference in men and women as mothers and fathers in those early years, it's so obvious and natural that a baby needs his mother because you're physically attached and there's so much that she's doing physically. And I feel like a father is he's there more to support her and to get things done so that she can be with her baby, but he doesn't really feel needed in the same way. And so his response to, oh my gosh, now I have a baby, I've got it, is immediately to ramp up his desire to provide. That's my theory about it. So when you have a child, it really just makes our differences, and they just continue. Like, it just continues. There's so many things that go on after the baby comes where marriages start to strain because they are operating in sameness mode, equality mode, 50-50, tit for tat. You do this, I do this. How much did you... And it's a shit show, honestly. It really is. You cannot go into marriage with that mentality or you're going to be really unhappy.
When I think about this, like I always felt this way about it. Would have never accepted two income thing. I just like coming from my household where both my parents worked my whole life, having that experience, and then also, I don't know. I always instinctively knew that that was a fool's errand. That was dumb. And it was a sacrifice that your children have to pay. Not you, not your wife, your children have to pay that shit. And it's dumb. Makes no sense. And I've never even entertained the idea of, marrying somebody and then them working same as me. What's the point? I'd never wanted any part of it. Maybe that's just me. I mean, and I didn't have relationship issues. I struggled to focus in school. I had a lot of trouble focusing in elementary school because I didn't want to be there. Like, I miss my mom, at least in kindergarten and first grade. Maybe after that, that wasn't the case, but I never had any problems with dating. Although I will say this, I remember sort of having some attachment issues with friends and stuff. Like, I remember my cousin would come over on the weekends, stay the night, and I would just be crushed when he went home. I mean, like, I would cry because I don't know, I just felt really alone. It was tough. And I think that had something to do with it. Maybe I sort of dealt with it before I became old enough to be, that I was dating and stuff. But it definitely had repercussions. That and I dealt with shit that I shouldn't have had to deal with. And it was because of our piece of shit society run by our piece of shit elites.
And so, anyway, going back to your question is, I just feel like it, because those differences between us don't show up until later, I think women don't realize until later how much they've been misled and how much it is hurting them until they're in the throes of it.
What are you learning about breadwinning mums?
This is a really difficult subject for people to talk about. Again, going back to what we're saying is that we're supposed to be the same, so there shouldn't be any difference.
What do you think about timing? Have you talked to women about how long you should date before engagement, be engaged before marriage, marriage before kids? Is that something that you consider?
I mean, I get asked about it, and I don't have any hard line about it. I think that I think it can be different for different people, and I think the circumstances matter, and how old you were when you met, and what you're doing, and what your background was like, and how you are as a person. So I don't think there's a hard line. For example, I knew my first husband for 5 years before we married, and we were married 4 years and divorced, no kids. I married my husband, current husband, only husband that I think of when I think of husband, is a year after I met him. So he asked me 6 months after we met.
Wow.
Now I was 29 and he was 33. So I do think it speeds up insofar as it's just, but there were a lot of circumstances there that to somebody else that might sound fast, but actually, and it was, but the circumstances were in place that made it make sense.
How long was
And
kids
because I'd
after?
been with 5 years, with the other one, obviously I had a thing that, well, that didn't work either. So
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, well, I got.
I think that the modern wisdom, I didn't even think about that the show is modern wisdom, but the sort of the modern wisdom that is told to women, that is told to everybody. She's just like kind of going, tripping over herself to uh, justify getting married after 6 months or whatever. I think that's a total crock of shit. Totally. And the way that women are, or that everybody is told, oh, that's too it's all of this sort of, it's almost like superstition. People just assume like, oh, if you get married quick, he's a wife beater, he's gonna be a wife beater, you're gonna be barefoot and pregnant, this, that, and the other. And I think these extended sort of trial periods, extended dating periods, it does nothing but sort of gets people used to that. Just like today, the way these women, they're like professional daters because they have a channel on YouTube or on TikTok or something. So they go on 30 dates a month. It's, I kind of have pity for them because they don't realize they're training themselves to be alone forever. You know what I'm saying? Like the same thing with like dating. I think sometimes I think it's better sometimes to necessarily take a chance, but to lock things in. You get more serious in that circumstance. You take it more seriously in that circumstance. I just think we hold on, or we loathe to let go our single life, or some people do. They, as if it's all that, as if it's something to be cherished, like partying and sleeping around. It's ridiculous. It's a terrible life. And I watched so many women like pass good guys by just so that they could end up alone at 30. And paradigm we're in, it's like the worst of all possible situations, worst of both worlds. And it's women that are eating this, that are getting hit with this. They're the ones that are in the lurch, that are out on a limb. It's like they're the ones that raise the kids. They're the ones that need to have they need to be unencumbered.
How long were kids after the marriage?
I was married at 30, had a daughter at 32, and a son at 35.
Yep. Cool. Okay. All right. So you've got this situation where perhaps a woman is going to have to go to their husband and say,
I want to stay home.
I want to stay at home. I wonder how many men, I think this is probably increased.
I was in that position of that guy and my wife came up to me and said that would be like a relief. I would be like, oh, thank God. Like, holy shit, you saw the light. I would be so pleased about that.
True. I wonder how many men are going to feel indignant or not seen in the fact that the lean in, quite masculine energy woman that they got into a relationship with, who maybe they were trying to encourage into her softness and her femininity for a long time and battle against and perhaps subdued some of the desires that they had around, well, she's on a career thing and I guess that's not the kind of life that I'm going to have. So they've kind of got into this expectation and maybe even tried to suggest and encourage that softness and that femininity to come through. Only
described come up in coaching anyway, but because usually it's
from the woman's side.
Yeah.
It might not be something that they would freely admit.
No, but it's
I was a lean-in boss lady type energy for a long time, and he actually asked me to do this a while ago. And
totally, and I actually read a book called The Alpha Female's Guide to Men in Marriage. I don't know if you saw that, and that's all about how the Type A masculinized.
Bro, it's creeping me out how much this woman, like, dude, it's really weird, man. Bro, not sure that I've ever heard or somebody has ever reminded me this much of my aunt. Like, dude, she sounds exactly the affect and the way she really. I mean, it's endearing. Makes me sort of like.
Hard charging woman can become softer. It's a whole book about how to become soft.
Fascinating. What are the key takeaways from that?
Gosh.
I'm aware it's an entire book to be summarized, but
it was 2017, Chris. That was so long ago. No, the gist of it is there's just a lot of little examples there of ways to soften your approach and delivery so that it's received better. And to understand that all those skills that you mastered and used to be successful at work, which absolutely works
in public
really well in the marketplace, are a complete disaster at home. That the skills that you have mastered are the exact opposite skills of what you need to make this work. And that is why so many, I think.
Wow, you really write unpopular books.
I really do.
I mean, they sell, but like they're culturally horrendous.
They're horrendous.
You're actually quite toxic, yeah.
I really am. It's sort of like, what's wrong with me? You know, like, it's, most of what I write comes from either personal experience or things that I've seen that, a lot of writers are writing what they're working through themselves, so there's that piece. And
research
then
is everybody
research is research. And then also just knowing things and you can't unknow them and you hear the lies that are spread and you just can't shut up about it. I mean, that's.
All right, everybody, I'm back. You have no idea the screaming and all that was involved behind the scenes, but the microphone politicians across the country will take notice. They will not go near the next one. This has become a sleeper issue for the entire election cycle. Why it matters. Republicans want AI companies to do whatever it takes to stay on Fox News.
It was like that.
Fox News.
It was right after this Axios story dropped about how Republicans are freaking out.
Right.
About the data center issue and warning the tech industry. Hours later, Fox News launches this little segment.
Little campaign.
This is a gem.
Let's take a listen.
I think this is a grave mistake. This is a national security issue that's turning into a local zoning issue. And I don't know anyone, if you've ever been to a homeowners meeting that's run well, they never are. And now we're putting politicians in charge of a technology that very few of them ever understand. And it's moving too fast. And I would tell you, we've been here before, right? Remember 5G and cell towers? Nobody wanted them in their backyard, but they wanted 5 bars of coverage. Same thing here playing out with data centers. People are afraid of what's going to happen. They talk about the cost, but here's the funny thing. When it talks about water usage, your local Olive Garden uses as much water as an average data center. So I don't hear anyone opposing Olive Garden on their water usage and bill going up. They should, because it's not real Italian food.
So we're in a race with China.
Absolutely.
And you can look at the numbers, right? AI inventions, China, 38,000 compared to over 6,000 for the U.S. Patents, 38,000 to 6. You see what we're seeing?
Yo, man, you can take those statistics, you can shove them right up your ass, bro. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. You fucking slick-haired douchebag. Bro, every time they need to twist our arm, or they're trying to get us to sort of conform or go down the dark alleyway that we're saying, no, we don't want to go down that alleyway. We don't feel like being mugged to death this, anytime soon. So then they bust out the whole China thing. Oh, China, they're on our tail. Bro, I could give 2 shits. I don't give a fuck that China's on our tail. Let them have it. Let them be the lead. Fuck that. It's like, bro, they're using that shit as a bludgeon. It's like the carrot and the stick. I'm over it. I'm fucking over it, bro. It's like, you know something? Let them have it, dude. I'm not. It just blows my mind. They think that they can get that people. They keep trying to get us to eat a shit sandwich. And they think if they just wave China in our face, somehow we're going to want to eat the shit sandwich. No. You know what? If China's beating us in the data centers, well, that's on them. Let them have it, man. But this is our country. And you're talking about what they're asking us if we're okay to live with it. We're telling them, no, we're not okay with it. And they're just loath to accept that. They're just trying to figure out, how can we fuck our constituencies? How can we trick them into letting us fuck them?
Here, by the way, robots installed 276,034. China isn't dealing with any of this, but I wonder if ultimately, forget the scarcity of chips, forget China trying to go without being held back in any way, if the rising opposition to data centers in this country is one of the biggest threats to our development in achieving dominance.
Yeah, as you see here.
Bro, keep your dominance. Keep your fucking dominance, bro. As far as I'm concerned, your fucking bullshit dominance has fucking impoverished this country. Us, me, the people. Like, fuck these motherfuckers and their dominance, bro. Fuck that shit. I'm tired of the empire. It doesn't do. The empire impoverishes us, and they think that we're fools and that they can wave this thing like a matador's cape and get us to just, they call the tune and we dance to it.
China's building out capacity while the far left's building out opposition. The saving grace.
Bro, it ain't far left, motherfucker. It ain't far left, asshole. It's called regular people, regular Americans. We don't want it, man. Like, what do we have to do for these people to accept that? Like, my goodness, dude. But watch, they're going to show it is not leftist. It's everybody.
Is federalism here, right? Different states have different laws and rules. So while New York and other states may pass moratoriums, which will ultimately damn them and drive up real electricity costs and keep them out of the data center race, I think this administration.
Bro, what I wouldn't give to be kept out of the data center race. Like, fuck, man. Let me get those states. Let me live in those states. Seriously. I don't want to be in the data center race. I don't think any other fucking average Americans do either. American.
The president is very rightly focused on making sure there are plenty of data centers built here. There's over 4,000 planned right now on top of the 4,000 that already exist. You know that Virginia is an epicenter, so we're going to see that happen in areas like Texas and New York in spite of some of these regulations.
A lot going on there. It's about China. It's about the far left. Yes, far left weirdos like Greg Abbott, Byron Donalds, and Josh Shapiro are the people who are leading the campaign. And just to show you how politically...
Which is awesome because Byron Donalds is running. Like, bro, I may very well vote Democrat. Because it's like anything but that guy. Filterless cigarettes. Filterless cigarettes. But Byron Donalds, the guy's not an American. He's like a Panamanian. And not only that, the dude is not for Americans. He's not for Floridians. The guy is for big business, Israel, and fucking data centers. This guy is scum. Scum. I'll vote for anybody so I don't have to vote for that piece of shit.
Radioactive this all is. Let's take Josh Shapiro as a test case. So let's put this up here on the screen. The governor of Pennsylvania talked to a polling expert, and he said that Shapiro was above water in the state on every issue except for data centers. And lo and behold, he just comes out yesterday, breaking, I just signed an executive order, blocking irresponsible AI data centers, implementing the strictest standards in the nation. I will not allow Pennsylvanians to be bullied by greedy developers and bulldozed by the lawyers working for these big tech companies. Effective immediately, we are requiring AI data centers to commit to strict environmental and transparent.
No, and I wouldn't feel this way if I wasn't so sure that our government and our politicians hate us and have no compunctions whatsoever with selling us up the river for feeding us to the wolves. We've watched them do it time after time. My entire life, I have watched politicians feed the American people to the wolves. I don't trust them at all anymore. If they had some trust, if they had gone to bat for us, I would be more apt to trust and say, they haven't steered us wrong yet. They haven't fed us to the wolves. Let's let them do their thing. But dude, to a man, they have sold us out every time. Israel, how many times? For those of you that are, in your older than or in your 30s or above, how many times have you seen the American people sold out in your lifetime? Iraq, Afghanistan, the 2008 bailouts, bro. Like, I'm not so sure that I could count it on two hands.
Requirements receive approval from the local community if they want to build here. That's not all. We are also removing all data centers from our fast track permit program and stopping any office or agency under my jurisdiction from signing an NDA with AI data center developers.
Matters a lot,
now, let's contrast this to a year ago of Governor Shapiro on CNBC when he talked about a new Amazon data center coming to PA. Let's take a listen.
Amazon announcing plans to invest $20 billion in Pennsylvania to build high-tech cloud computing and AI campuses across the state, hoping to create over 1,200 jobs. Joining us now, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Is this the biggest ever private investment in Pennsylvania, Governor?
The biggest ever by a factor.
Bro, and that is supposed to make us more amicable to being shafted by big AI companies and stuff. We're supposed to be more warm to the idea because, the biggest investment ever. Bro, that doesn't, how does that equate to a better situation for anybody? They don't show us the numbers. They don't show us why that should matter to us. They just say, biggest investment ever. Now let us screw you. Now let us shaft you. And may very well be the biggest investment ever. Chances are, though, it's the guys, Mr. Shapiro here that would get a big payday. It's him and his cronies, him and the other criminal politicians of Pennsylvania. Like, I don't take any of the shit they say, I don't take it seriously anymore. All this garbage that they talk about, bro, it's just lubrication. It's just getting us to sign on the dotted line. And once we sign on the dotted line, we get a what do they call it? An orifice. We get a orifice body check or whatever the hell they call it, where they search your body. That's what we end up getting every time. They're insane to think that anybody believes any of the bullshit they say anymore. It's outrageous.
Factor of 3, and I think it's important to note that this is just an initial investment coming from Amazon of at least $20 billion. So this is going to grow. Pennsylvania is going to be better off. I think America is going to be better off because we're going to win the battle of AI supremacy, and it's going to be done right here in the Commonwealth.
I do not want to win that battle. That battle, bro, it's not even on my bingo card. I don't give a fuck if who wins that shit. I don't care. And there's nothing these cocksuckers are going to say that's going to make me care. Nothing. All I know is that when they're talking this way, it's not because it's not because it's so all fired. It's such a great opportunity for us, the average citizen. They're not shilling like this because they know it's going to make our life better. No. The only time they get excited like this about anything is when some piece of shit Jay has donated money to their fucking campaign and they're going to make out like a bandit. I mean, you do well to be suspicious when these guys start talking like this. When they start, talking about this huge boon to you that investments and it's just a bunch of horse shit, man. And it's nothing but kabuki theater to get us to relax and accept this shit situation. They've been doing it for decades now. And they did it with NAFTA. They swore up and down how it wasn't going to, our jobs weren't going to go overseas. We were going to benefit, blah, blah, blah. We got screwed. We got shafted. The middle class got a little bit smaller. The upper class got a hell of a lot bigger, and our wages haven't grown. They haven't gotten any higher. They've stagnated since this shit, since the NAFTA and stuff. And that's all they've been doing is taking from us and talking us into accepting it.
Look at that little smile on his face. The biggest investment. What a difference an entire year makes. And you think that that's far left from Governor Shapiro? Also, for the record, Olive Garden is bad and we should ban them too.
Well,
but America's not ready for that conversation.
Also, for the record, what he's saying about the water usage is total and complete bullshit. Yes. Just so we know. Maybe you could cherry pick some small data center somewhere servicing some sort of something that uses the 1,000 to 5,000 gallons of water that Olive Garden uses. But the AI training data centers use millions of gallons of water. There is no comparison there. So it's just total and complete bullshit. But it's very, very interesting that they want to try to frame this as a far left issue and make it partisan. And I think for some Fox News boomers, that may well work if they do it consistently enough. What the polling reflects right now, there's very little divide between Democrats, Republicans, and independents in terms of their opposition to data centers, and certainly their opposition to data centers being located in their backyards. A lot of these places are going up in rural America, which of course tends to be more Republican and more conservative. So a lot of the local opposition, grassroots opposition, has been among Republicans in very conservative parts of the country, in red parts of the country. So, these dynamics are starting to pop up in a lot of races. In Wisconsin, Francesca Hong, who ultimately lost the Democratic nomination, she was the only one in the Democratic primaries who took a clear-cut position in favor of a data center moratorium. David Crowley, who won, has a it's sort of a Josh Shapiro-esque position. But when he got asked about what's your big difference between you and Francesca Hong, for some unknown reason, he said data centers, which is one of the issues where she was best. Republicans, who have a very similar position to him, by the way, on data centers in the state of Wisconsin, see
Republican elected in that state attacking him for that for that position for not getting there soon enough and taking money from those companies. Let's take a listen.
This is how left wing this is. Check this.
If we don't get our cattle supply up, couldn't one argue, well, you're doing something with your land, selling it to an AI company that can make money off of it, versus unless we're going to get more cattle, what's it doing?
Well, we do a lot of that. Actually, we lose about a farm a week here in Texas, either data centers, solar farms, wind farms, housing, parks, airports. I mean, you name it. So urban encroachment is getting more farmland than anything.
Are you worried
else.
about these data centers?
I'm very worried about the data centers. We're going way too fast here in Texas. The reason they're coming to Texas, there's in our counties have no oversight ability, so they can just do whatever. If they can pick a place that has no groundwater conservation district and the county has no ordinance, they can do whatever they want. So that's why I called on the governor Abbott for a 1-year pause, a moratorium. Let's wait. Let's let the legislature meet. Let's put some guidelines, some oversight on this industry, and September 1st of 27, we'll have a handle of this. He refused to do that. Then I called him and said, well, if you're not going to do that, let's do a special session. You can call the guys in and gals in tomorrow. We'll get on this. If it's the only thing on the call, we'll have it done in a week. Give it immediate effect. We can control the growth of this industry. He refused to do that. And the reason he's got a huge conflict of interest, Governor Abbott's taking millions of dollars from the data center industry.
Yeah, so that's a real far left stuff. I want to address all this stuff too, because and this is where somebody sent me a very thoughtful message, and they said, Saagar, you are an advocate for nuclear power. Do you not see the parallels where you and I both know nuclear power should have been ubiquitous in the...
Anyway, that's it for tonight, fellas. I gotta take care of a couple of things. I need to fix some stuff with this streaming setup. But anyway, like and subscribe if you hadn't already. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you guys